Hey everybody and hello humans. This is Not Robots DC Comic Review Show. This is it, everyone, the last week of Future State. After this week, we will go back to covering regular DC books, mostly from the Infinite Frontier banner. This week, we're going to be covering Batman, Superman, Suicide Squad, Superman vs. Imperious Lex, Aquaman, Legion of Superheroes, Superman House of L, Dark Detective number 4, and Generations Forge. My name is Josh, and we have expanded the show a little bit. With me, as always, is Jared.
Save the cheerleaders, save the world.
And our two new co-hosts, Rob.
Hi, diddly ho, comic fanarinos.
And Brandon.
Welcome to the machine, friends.
We summarize, analyze, and editorialize every issue we cover and strive to keep it all about the content with no publisher influence. We are on Twitter at NotARobotComics, and Jared is at honeybadger_bot. We all answer show mail sent to notarobotcomics@gmail.com. We'll see if we can get Rob and Brandon to share their social media on the next show. This is their first one, so we won't let you guys beat them up too badly. The next part is dedicated to those that support us with their hard-earned money, but that's not the only way that you can. Like, subscribe, download, and share our episodes as much as possible. It helps to get the word out, and that is the best kind of advertising. And now we're going to say that big, huge thank you to the humans who do help support the podcast. They subscribe to our Patreon with tiers starting at just $1 a month so that we can make sure we keep bringing you more and better content. This is the Not a Robot Anti-Beatbot Must Be a Human shout out and roll call, and that shout out goes to our humans Weird Science Jim, Blue Mondays, Hollister, Torpedo Face, and Roch Crockett. A big salute to you and an even bigger thank you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up and show us you just might be a human after all and get a shout out on the Not a Robot Anti-Beatbot Must Be a Human roll call. Alright, so we have two brand new hosts joining us today on the last week of Future State. Let's get to know them a little bit before diving into the show. Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into comics?
Where to start? Well, my name is Brandon, obviously. I've been reading comics for pretty much all my life, I'd say, but regularly, that is week to week, for about the past 5 years or so. So it was really DC Rebirth that kind of got me back into reading weekly, and it's just been a pleasure to follow series and series after that. And I guess it's hard to really say what attracts me towards comics at this point. It's almost like an obsession, but
I can get that.
Yeah, I wouldn't really know where to start. I wouldn't know where to start with the stories or the artwork or the themes or everything else, but all I know is I'm a really big fan, and it's such an honor to be able to talk about it with 3 other great people.
Well, thanks, Brandon. They all feel the same way, too. Now, I kind of get what you're saying. It seems like everybody has their opinion on which comic book a person should read when they're first getting into comics. But I'm with you. There are so many. And there's a lot of, it's like, what kind of comic book do you like? That could totally change whether I'm going to recommend Swamp Thing, Superman, Batman, Legion of Superheroes. I need to know what your flavor is before I can tell you what comic book to read.
And then which version of that comic book?
Right. I mean, the hardest thing is, when someone will ask you, and this goes for superheroes or any other kind of comic, where should I start? Well, it's like saying, if you're going to watch movies, you gotta start with something. I mean,
right.
You can't just say I want to just watch movies. You have to think about which specific ones you want. And so every time someone asks me, for a recommendation, I'm like, well, what are you interested in? What appeals to you? And then I can kind of work from there because I've got pretty much everything under the sun.
Tell me a movie you enjoy, and I can tell you something along that line.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I'd have to say jumping into movies is probably a little easier than jumping into comics, because with the movie, you can say, just start from part 1. Yeah. But you can't really say that with the comic book, now can you?
Reboots. Every time we reboot the universe.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that was
Future State.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Or Infinite Frontier. They made it easy to jump in and out of. Yeah. And, well, guys, that was meeting Brandon. Rob, how about we get a little introduction from you?
All right, well, I'm Rob, of course. See, I'm like a second generation comic reader. I got it from my dad growing up as a kid. He's been reading since the 70s when he was a child, and he bought me books from the shop when I was a kid, bought all the kids stuff. And as I got older, I just got more and more into the more adult books, and all the rest is history now. I've been reading practically everything I can get my hands on.
Right on. Jared and I actually, for those of you who didn't know, Jared is my little brother, and we are also we are also second generation comic book fans. Our father even at one point ran a comic book shop.
Nice,
that's awesome.
And I'd have to say, if somebody were to ask me what got me all the way head first into comic books, I was reading them since I was able to read. But what made me fall in love with them was easily the death of Superman and the Nightfall story arc.
Interesting.
And I mean, even as a young child, those were some pretty gritty, dark comic books for the time that they were in. But man, that's what made me an addict. And I've been a hardcore DC fan ever since.
But Death of Superman, it crossed every single genre. Time magazine put out a special episode where they interviewed celebrities, and they were to act as if Superman was real, but he died. Like Shaq gave a big long speech. I remember that.
They did the same thing with Captain America too, when they killed him off. It was on the news and everything.
Yeah,
they had Joe Quesada on a feature, basically saying like, "Oh, well, it is what it is."
Anything new in your neck of the woods, Jared?
Well, just getting ready for the MCU podcast that we're building at Not a Robot, and on the comic books. The comic books that end up getting me in there, definitely Death of Superman, but the 90s series Hellblazer, I deeply fell for Constantine because, he's a dick, but, he's human. Okay, spells are real? Well, you can learn spells. I ain't gonna be learning no damn Taekwondo. I couldn't be Green Arrow or Nightwing. Nope. Nah.
He's a lovable scamp.
Yes.
Well, it is fantastic to have the two of you as part of the team here at Not a Robot Comics, and I cannot wait to hear what all of you thought about this week's comics. Speaking of which, the first book in the final week of Future State is going to be Batman Superman #2, and it happens to take place right at the beginning of the Future State timeline. It has a cover drawn from David Marquez and Alejandro Sanchez, written by Gene Luen Yang, with art by Scott McDaniel, Ben Oliver, Stephen Segovia, and Arif Brianto. Tom Napolitano did the letters, but Brandon is going to do the review.
All right, here we go. This is part 2 of the last ride of the world's finest. Here we see Superman in the clutches of the new Mr. Toad as Batman fights off some sort of octopus bull hybrid thing. Escaping through a window with one leg snapped, Batman presses on in true hardcore fashion to find Superman. Meanwhile, Professor Pig attempts a rather brutal vivisection on Superman as he attempts to negotiate with the new Mr. Toad. So, after defeating one of the magistrate robots, Batman discovers they are actually eyes sewn in to the creatures of animals inhabiting the robots. The eyes
that's not gross.
Superman. Right? Oh my god! Turns out Pig had been experimenting on animals all over Gotham with Superman's DNA. So after deducing that the magistrate intends to use Superman's DNA to boost its surveillance, Batman runs a trace using the microchips in one of the animals to track Pig's location. After reuniting with the Man of Steel, Batman and Superman take down Pig and destroy the entirety of Pig's base in an awesome fight scene where Superman absolutely levels the entire base. Finally, teaming up with Animal Man to cure the animals that Pig had transformed, the world's finest return to one of Batman's microcaves, where they attempt to reconcile with what just happened. Batman essentially tells Superman to piss off after the danger he presents to Gotham, and Superman goes back to Metropolis with a touching final scene of the new Mr. Toad and his daughter returning. The art by Ben Oliver was beautiful as expected, with moody, dreary colors to match the tone when appropriate. Though some of the art by Steven Segovia was a bit rough in some places, it worked really well in others, and all in all, it was a touching wrap-up to a decent two-parter that leaves me mostly interested in what Gene Luen Yang will be doing in the upcoming Batman-Superman title.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him doing this in the current era. Jared, what did you think about Future State Batman Superman #2?
Batman Superman, I love the art. I give it a 8.75. Mr. Toad pulled the alarm out of 10. It was fun. It campy. Glad to see it come to conclusion.
All right. Jared always has custom scoring angles going on. Rob, what did you think about Batman Superman #2?
I really enjoyed the story. This is exactly the kind of Batman Superman story I loved reading when, like pre-Flashpoint, when they were doing that kind of book, which right. I find now with Rebirth they kind of shied away from. Yeah, the art was beautiful. The colors were nice. Professor Pig's mask was really weird, but I can look past that. It reminds me too much of what they did with Black Mask for a while when he was wearing like some kind of leather daddy fetish thing. It was really weird.
Yeah,
that was weird. Disturbing.
Yeah.
I don't know which was more disturbing, Professor Pig's mask or the weird things on his hands.
The hands.
Yeah,
that was, the hands.
That was
down.
Definitely. And for a surgeon to do that to his hand seems really weird.
Yeah.
Right.
I did feel that this, honestly, you take the Magistrate out, and this didn't even have to be a Future State story at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of see, like, how it works, because it's, it's the Magistrate essentially taking over for Gotham, and you kind of have, I called it the last ride of the world's finest, because it does kind of have that vibe a little bit, where it's like, this is the last time they're going to work together before Superman goes off to fight on Warworld and Batman's run underground. Yeah, so it kind of has that aspect to it. So it works well with the Magistrate stuff, but it really could have worked as a separate story, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely could have. Rob, what did you rate this one?
I would give this a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. All right, some pretty good scores from you guys. For me, this was a fun read. I almost always enjoy this title. Like Rob said, this is something that's always been good, quick little stories that you don't have to go back 100 issues to know the character development. You know who Batman and Superman are. You know what kind of dynamic they've got. In this book, the dynamic between the two, and it works together flawlessly. The play off of each other at the very end was very Batman and very Superman, and I love the way that it wrapped up. That being said, it not being a blockbuster title doesn't stop it from being a fun read. That's about all this is, with a touch of gruesome Professor Pig dashed in for me. The art is good, the pace is good, but for me, it was kind of just an average comic book story, no matter which way you slice it. I bumped it up because of the fun, so I'm giving this one a 6.5 out of 10. Now, while that title could definitely earn the branding of just a comic book, the next one is known for some pretty good stories, especially as of late in Tom Taylor's most recent run. Wrapped in a cover from Javier Fernandez and Marcelo Mialo, the first story is written by Robbie Thompson with art by Javier Fernandez and Alex Sinclair with lettering from Wes Abbott. The second story is written by Jeremy Adams with Fernando Pasarin and Auclair Albert on art with Wes Abbott again on the lettering. Rob, can you take us through Suicide Squad Part 2?
Okay, so when we last saw the Suicide Squad, they were not actually the Suicide Squad we thought were going to be the Suicide Squad. Connor Kent's squad, dubbed the Justice Squad, were resting and dealing with the fallout of their last mission, while the real Suicide Squad, led by Peacemaker, are preparing to hunt down Amanda Waller. Problem is they have a time limit. If they stick around for too long, they're going to die in some blood-curdling explosion of some kind. Okay, so we pick up now with the Justice Squad. They're building a machine with a Brainiac tech they took from the last mission, and that machine is going to lock away Earth-3 forever from the rest of the multiverse. Connor and Aquaman are chatting about Aquaman's current race and how other people are safe, but then Waller pops up and electrocutes Aquaman, starting to show off a little bit of what she's really about. Meanwhile, Peacemaker's crew are getting ready to infiltrate what they think is Amanda Waller's apartment, with Mirror Master and Lord Zod sneaking into the Happy Harbor base where the Justice Squad is. Just as Peacemaker calls the start of the op, The Justice Squad attacks first, with the Flash saying, "You really believed Waller didn't know you were coming?" Fights break out at both sites, Mirror Master chomping at the bit to take on the Flash. Lord Zod takes down Aquaman. Back at Waller's apartment, Clayface and Martian Manhunter take on the rest of the squad. Evil Star succumbs to the major death that's coming for everybody. And Peacemaker goes straight for Amanda Waller. But then we find out that Amanda Waller with Peacemaker is not the Amanda Waller they're looking for. And this is actually the Earth 3 Amanda Waller.
Dun dun dun.
The Waller they're looking for is actually watching them the whole time, and then activates Clayface's bomb, which for some reason was in all the different copies he made. How she can anticipate how many copies he would make is kind of odd. So the apartment blows up. Connor freaks out a little bit, and Lord Zod takes him down for all of his teammates now dying, and now Hypnotic Wonder Woman is going for Mirror Master and trying to get him to switch sides.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Flash comes in and sprays Lord Zod with some kind of aerosol kryptonite, which she didn't know was going to kill him, but now he's dead. And then we jump back to Hypnotic Wonder Woman and Mirror Master, where Mirror Master has now been taken over by Hypnotic Wonder Woman. But then somebody in his earpiece says, "You know what happens when you switch teams," and blows up his head.
Yep.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of bombs.
There are. And in that vicinity were Hypnotic Wonder Woman, Superman, and the Flash, and they all seemingly were taken out by the blast. Earth 3 Amanda Waller is surprised and then gets shot, surprise, surprise, by Peacemaker, who somehow made it out of the exploded apartment building, potentially with the help of Parademon, who then just keels over and dies. Superboy comes to the rescue of Amanda Waller and attempts to talk Peacemaker down, and we find out that they actually have a history together and fought on teams together. He lasers heat vision down onto a device, blowing up what he thinks is the switch for all the neck bombs, and then Amanda Waller reveals that it actually was the kill switch for the machine that they built, and now Earth 3 is forever sealed away from the rest of the multiverse. Peacemaker attempts to insult Amanda Waller one last time, but then succumbs to the multiverse death and dies. And as that happens, Amanda Waller succumbs to her gunshot and begins to die, not before she talks to Connor and tells him that you're not a criminal, Connor, like I kept saying you weren't and like you don't want to be. You are Superman. Now it's your job to protect this world. So that was a little messy for me. It jumped around all over the place.
It was kind of really hard to keep track of everything that was going on because of how much it bounced around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that feel though. I found it flawless. You know, I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed the comic book this week.
Okay, so for me, this felt like a 2-issue setup to see if there was an audience for an Earth 3 standalone book. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
Not saying it wasn't done good, because if that's the case, it was good. However, this taking place over just 2 issues, it felt a little too muddled for me. If it was stretched out a bit over 3, maybe we could have been able to keep track of what was going on a little bit more. Maybe it would have felt a little bit more natural in the storytelling.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
I was thinking the exact same thing. 3 issues probably would have fit a bit better because they could have spread out the story a little more. That this issue with all the combat felt a little rushed.
Yeah, it was really crammed in there.
Yeah, I definitely felt the same way, where it kind of felt like it really had to just hurry up and get to the end. Especially that fight with the other Justice League. It went way too fast for my taste.
Yeah.
I would have liked a little bit of just a break in between so I could just process everything that's happening.
Right?
Right.
For me, I feel like Suicide Squad should have been a single issue book and Black Adam should have existed on its own.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've got that first one out of the way, let's move on to the second story of the title. Rob, can you finish us up here?
Sure thing. So now, with Black Adam, so he's been living large on the planet Kandak, He's now dating Wonder Woman of the Justice Legion A from the 853rd century. If you all remember DC 1 million.
Yeah, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it shouldn't have been a surprise
Tinder saw it
considering they brought in the Hyper Clan for Justice League. They seem to have a really... And Solaris and Superman Wonder Woman. They seem to have like a love for the Grant Morrison stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so we have Gold Beetle has arrived at the nick of time to save Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Black Adam's aide from the Justice Legion A, who were taken over by the Unkindness, who is slowly and systematically destroying the universe bit by bit. There is some confusion as to who Gold Beetle is, but she quickly goes over her brief history thanks to Skeets, and then brings out the Scarab from Blue Beetle mythology. Black Adam recognizes this and remembers the wizard that initially granted it magical powers. At the same time, Gold Beetle also reveals that Black Adam's aide is none other than Mitchell Shelley, the Resurrection Man. And I'll admit I did not see that coming, but I really should have.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It blindsided me, and it should not have.
So as they're coming up with a plan to find the wizard that imbued the Scarab with magical powers, the Justice Legion A recovers from getting attacked by the Gold Beetle ship. I'm not sure if it had an actual name. I did not see one. And
I think they just called it the BB.
the BB. Oh, that's it.
And by the way, man, let me just interject here. Can I get some more Gold Beetle? I love that
Oh,
chick.
right.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely feeling the Gold Beetle.
I'm a huge
Gonna be in
Booster
Flash,
Gold
right?
fan, and this character
Absolutely.
speaks volumes to me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's a perfect blend of the two of them, and I
Mhm.
enjoyed the hell out
Yeah.
of it.
She's
I
going to be in
definitely
Flash,
enjoyed the Blue
right?
Beetle part.
The new Flash?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, I think so.
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, so as the Justice Legion A is attacking, Gold Beetle pops up a force field, and Black Adam speaks the magic words into the Scarab that opens a portal that takes them to none other than Hell. And it's seen better days.
Yeah.
It is nothing like his former self. Being all gray and barren like that. They also land in front of none other than the Phantom Stranger, and this place is just full of surprises so far. So he describes what's going on, how magic has kind of just hidden itself away, and he takes them on a Lord of the Rings-esque journey through DC Universe outer space, through the Speed Force and New Genesis, and they end up at the Tower of Fate, where they find all the magical powered beings in existence have kind of reserved themselves away into the Tower of Fate here, hiding away from the Unkindness, and they're led by the Quintessence, who...
Which was nice to see. That was another thing I did not expect to see here.
Now, I
No.
don't know the Quintessence personally beyond this, if they were an existing group.
Yes.
Yep, they're the power of the cosmos, basically directly underneath the hands.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, wow.
it's a big, huge cosmos thing, and you have to get into some pretty heavy stories for it.
Element, even beyond that, seeing Sinestro on that team is a bit of a surprise. I did not picture him in the Magic world.
No, and this is the future state version of the Quintessence. This is not the one that we normally have.
Mhm.
He was the first one to master two different bearings of light. You know, he
Yeah.
did the willpower and fear. He was the first one to master that. That was something that was unheard of. Yeah. In Green Lantern lore. Sinestro was a badass. Bad guy or not, he was a badass.
Yeah, that's fair. So,
Shit. Barbara the High Mother? Or Barba the High Mother? Yeah, the entire team's powerhouses.
So as they're all greeting each other, Shazam, the wizard, greets Black Adam. It's been centuries, well, millennia at this point since they've seen each other. The Phantom Stranger whisks himself away, his job now complete, and as they're figuring out what to do next, Gold Beetle starts to disappear as they realize the Unkindness has taken and consumed her part of the timeline. Before they have a chance to rescue her, she disappears completely. And then the Wizard Shazam beckons Black Adam to use his magic, and they can add to it to elevate his body so he can be protected from the unkindness. Even if she attacks his portion of the timeline, he will be safe. He wants Wonder Woman and his unborn child to also be included. Shazam says, no, that's not possible. Mitchell Shelley comes up with an idea. Being tired of being reborn and being alive, he just wants to die. He pulls a gem from his necklace, places it to his forehead, saying that she promised him peace. And as that happens, his body erupts, breaks apart, and in pops the unkindness with all her lackeys and cohorts, attacking every magic user. There's a giant battle. The wizard tries to take her down, fails horribly. Black Adam tries to protect everybody, attacks the unkindness, also fails horribly, crawls to the wizard, asks what else they can do, if anything. He says, there is one thing you could possibly do, but you have to speak my name. And as he screams Shazam out loud, he gets teleported across time and space in the Speed Force, through my boy Tempest Fuginaut, splitting him in half. What the hell?
Right.
Straight into the Rock of Eternity, which pushes it away from the center of the multiverse and straight back into hell in the year 2021, where he remains trapped for all time yet again. And as he realizes his prison, he vows he will destroy the unkindness before it destroys the universe, and he will see his child, and that's the end. No actual resolution there. As much as I've enjoyed the whole Black Adam story between both issues, I was kind of disappointed with this end. I thought it was going to end on a little bit of a higher note, maybe a little happier, less depressing.
It's a Black Adam story. It's all depressing.
Yeah.
Look at his origin.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he is always so damn pissed. Yeah, I'd break bad too.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
All right. Rob, what did you think of the whole issue?
As a whole, I enjoyed the first issue immensely for Suicide Squad as a whole. Between Black Adam and the Suicide Squad story, I had such high hope for it. Just how rushed the Suicide Squad portion was kind of put the book down a bit for me, but Black Adam definitely brought it back up until at least the end, because it just seemed a little confusing as well, like why he's in 2021 now and what's going to happen and how is he going to get out and what will he do now. I'm kind of conflicted, but as a whole, I'd probably give the book a 7.75.
7.75 out of 10. Well, that's fair. Other than the action panels, which seemed a little weak to me, just a little bit, the art was pretty good throughout this whole title, especially on the splash pages. The story was equally as good, if not better, right up until the end. I'm kind of confused about what happened, and I don't understand why Black Adam was sent back to 2021 to be imprisoned in the Rock of Eternity again. But hopefully this will be ironed out going forward somehow in Infinite Frontier. But as of now, the ending kind of spoiled this one for me a bit. Overall, the whole thing was a bit better than average, so I am going to give the whole book a 7 out of 10. Brandon, what did you think about Suicide Squad and the book as a whole?
I kind of have really the shared opinions of everyone else. I was kind of lukewarm on the first issue of Suicide Squad. I enjoyed the Black Adam backup immensely more than I enjoyed the main Suicide Squad story. And I had hoped that the second issue would help it pick up a little more. And it didn't really do that for me. It just kind of rushed to the end. So it just kind of left me feeling a little lukewarm. And, I'm hopeful that because this was only a two-parter, the main Suicide Squad series will be able to flesh out its plots a little more. But for me, it was a little rushed. Not as, and as I said, the Black Adam story, I felt like the second part was interesting. I enjoyed the appearances from the new Quintessence and kind of connecting all the magic stuff. But like I said, on the whole, this one kind of disappointed me a little bit too. I thought it was going to wrap up in a natural way, but I'm hopeful. It seems like maybe this is something they'll touch on in the upcoming Justice League title with Black Adam, but we'll see. So on the whole, I'd probably give it about a 6.5 out of 10.
Seems fair enough, and it seems like we've all got pretty much the same idea is coming out of this book. Let's see if Jared rounds that out for us.
Well, the Suicide Squad, I actually thought that the art was good. It felt like a feel-good. It felt like a feel-good story, and to be able to see Amanda Waller die, yes, Black Adam should have been a standalone. It was impeccable. Totally feeling the Gold Beetle. Fear in the Quintessence, because that's OP now. Overall, the Black Adam story was better. It would have scored higher if they would have just split them up. But combined, I'm going to give it a 7.75. The Wizard finally chose Prince Adam, and as I wrote that, I started thinking, Prince Adam is He-Man. So, the Wizard chose He-Man! So, 8,
wouldn't that be
yeah,
fun?
I'm going to bump it up to 8 just because I left at that. 8, the Wizard choosing He-Man out of 10.
All right. Here we go, guys. Now, going back to a single story issue, next up is Superman vs. Imperious Lex. It has a cover from Unique Paquette and Mark Russell writing. The art is from Steve Pugh and Romulo Fiardo Jr., and Carlos M. Mangual did the lettering on this one. Jared, take us through the conclusion of Superman vs. Imperious Lex number 2.
Well, as always, I want to start with the cover, and it is creepy. Like, maybe if it was draw the inspiration from Tales of the Crypt, kind of have that whole entire creepy issue of Mad Magazine feel to it, with the way that it was drawn.
I
but
see
it,
that.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Right, you most expect to see, was it Alfred E. Newman?
Yeah.
Dressed as Superman with a beard or some shit.
Right.
But this story shows Lex being a beautifully mastered manipulator, stating that the threat of the revenge from the planets that he straight up deboed. He deboed all their stuff. Yeah. Well, what's that? Right, that's mine now. That's my gold chain. I'm gonna go cry in my car. Well, he sent the ridiculous out there, but holy shit, we found pay dirt. Because, they have the whole entire setup from last week where Lois Lane's got to go to Luxor, Lex's planet, and be able to welcome in there. Well, they signed the ordeal, and congratulations, you are now officially a member of the United Planets. But holy shit, we found pay dirt. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but deuterium crystals, D crystals. Amplify energy, so that solves the energy crisis that's going on. So that means, hey, these are going to be a high demand. Lex is thinking profit, because of the welfare of his people, because he's a giving person. The greatest humanitarian of all life.
In case you guys haven't noticed, Jared is a Lex Luthor fan.
I can tell.
Yes. But the problem is Lex is already signed into being a member of the United Planets, so now that means he's only been on there for like 5 minutes, it seems like. Because Lois is still there, they're still signing the contracts, but ink's already on the paper. And he was using it to try to protect himself. But now he's got to give a portion of all the money that he ends up making from the sales of the D crystals to go towards the United Planets. That fucks Lex up for a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, all that profit gone, that could help my people. But he is a Luthor. As he states, rules are just really suggestions. Lois gets to decide how long he's a member of the United Planets. So, he's gonna keep her hostage until she gives up. Kind of straightforward. Does not say he's gonna hurt her. Well, he might have. Yeah, he said to starve her, but the robot says he's just joking. Lex gets praised by the X-99, that little robot I was just talking about, for when he took down the big blue Boy Scout until Kal was able to disable the suit, keeping Lois until Lexor was released of membership. Once again, Kal screws Lexor, taking a sample back of the crystals to the fortress, where he can make copies, and deprive the innocent people of Luxor from the profit of and being able to better their lives. I'm gonna give this 8, and I know this goes against everything we stand for at the podcast, but as soon as I read it, I knew it was it. 8 mother of robots out of 10.
Oh, man. All right, Rob, what did you think about Superman versus Imperious Lex?
I thought it was a really fun story. I really enjoyed the first one. I could not wait to see what this one would bring, and I wasn't disappointed. It feels like a classic Superman versus Lex Luthor story. If you think about that DC Alphabet book with Lex Luthor stealing 40 cakes, this kind of reminds me of that, but with a lot more murder. He had to kill a couple of guys to get the 40 cakes, and he got away with it.
They even referenced that in the first issue of this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Called
right.
Cake
Yeah.
Thief.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you have played Borderlands, but every time I see Lex with that weird mask to make him look younger, I just think of Handsome Jack, and I cannot stop thinking about that.
Oh man, I haven't played that in a while, but yeah. Oh man, you're right.
I'm really excited to see what will happen next. It ends on a kind of a cliffhanger, but on like a wacky kind of what will he do next kind of Looney Tunes-esque cliffhanger. Like the Roadrunner ran out of patience with
Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, exactly. Also, how did Lex just straight up, I know he's the leader of a planet, but he straight up murdered a whole bunch of people and nobody said anything?
Nobody cared. He's their savior.
Well,
it's a whole planet full of Jareds, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he killed people from the United Planets.
Yeah.
Nobody has been able to report it yet, though. That's the reason.
Yeah,
So, and
that's
right
fair.
now, you're able to do whatever the hell you want because you got them to be able to back you. Just like, so not trying to get political or anything like that, but people part of the United Nations. Hey, well, we'll make sure no one picks on you, no matter how much you contribute. We'll make sure no one picks on you. So smaller countries are able to be protected by bigger countries. So Luxor is a smaller planet, so it's able to be protected by the larger planets because they're members now.
Interesting. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah.
And then all those crystals that he has are now worthless because Superman found a way to synthesize it. So he screws Luthor out of being able to sell the cure for the energy crisis. That damn Boy Scout.
All right, Brandon, where were you at with it?
I really love this issue. I think Mark Russell has such a great voice for Superman, and
Yes, he does.
yeah, and I mean I enjoy him on a lot of things that he does, especially those Hanna-Barbera comics that he did a while back. So it was exciting to see him be a part of a main DC book for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Steve Pugh is just such a great classic artist. He brings a lot of emotion to scenes. I love the way he draws like Lex when he's upset. It's so great, so expressive. Just brings a lot of emotion. And like I said, I really enjoy the story and how Superman's kind of able to screw Lex once more. Sorry, Jared, but it's always fun to see.
I got feelings,
Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is Lex is Lex, Supes is Supes, and Lois is Lois. It's just all in space.
Oh yeah.
I see no problem with how the story went down. They were done wonderfully. Like Brandon said, Mark Russell has a great voice for Superman, and about the only other person that I would put in front of him would be Mark Waid.
Wow, that's high praise.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about writers that are currently still in the business. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I was going to say, man, we're going to need so much hate mail.
But I think we got a pretty decent, fun to read, well drawn comic here. I had a lot of fun with it over the course of the 2 issues. The little throwbacks about the cake thief deal made me giggle, and man, I hate to admit this, but if we actually think about it, this is the whole story. The 2-part arc is all Superman's fault. He initially reacted without thinking things through, like Batman would. Overall, man, I did enjoy this one a lot. For the average kind of comic book it bumped that score all the way up to 7.25 for me out of 10.
The comic book had the Smallville feel. Clark screwed up. What? So what happens? Season 5 happens. Well, he screws up again, so season 6 happens. He's always cleaning up his own mess.
Ain't that the truth? Well, all right, everybody. That is it for the first half of the show, and we will be right back to cover the rest of our issues after this commercial break. And we are back. Hope that wasn't too horrible. Thank you for sticking with Not a Robot. Now let's wrap up Future State, shall we? Moving from space to, well, more space, but in the confluence, we tackle our next book. Written by Brandon Thomas with art from Daniel Sampier and Adriano Lucas. Letters from Clayton Cowles with Sampier and Lucas on that cover art. Our next issue is Future State Aquaman number 2. Honestly, so much happened in this issue, but at the same time, so little happened in this issue. I wish that this summary could be longer. I love both of these characters, the way that they're represented here. The art, just like in the last issue, is 100% absolutely beautiful. The problem here is that most of this is flashbacks and a lot of jumping around in time that points us to pretty much the same thing. It doesn't take away from the issue, but it just means we sum it up pretty quickly. The confluence is the giant space ocean that connects all space and time, and it's a living thing. Because Andy is a water wielder, she can control the confluence. She accidentally forms a leg from some water in the living ocean, and they resent her for it. For those of you who don't remember, she accidentally cut her leg off in the last issue. Now she has one made out of living water. She refuses to let it return back to the ocean until she has rescued her brother Aquaman. So she's forced to survive for 6 years on her own, and she does so using all of the lessons that she learned from her brother. Eventually, she is able to break Jackson free from his prison, and they are once again together. The issue ends with a caption box that says, Aquaman and Aquawoman escape again. It doesn't mean that we're getting more of the story, but I sure wouldn't mind reading it. I love Jackson Hyde. He's a great character in every single iteration I have ever seen him in. And Andy, hell, she's cool as well. I want more of this duo. I'm just really bummed out that I don't think we're going to get it. I give this one a final score of 7.5 out of 10. Rob, what did you think of Aquaman?
I honestly couldn't agree more with what you're saying, that it was a great book, but it honestly didn't have a lot to say about it. And I was thinking about that when I went through it the second time. I don't know what else I can say. I also love these characters. I'm a huge fan of the Aquaman Rebirth series. I'm hoping they find a way to continue some kind of Aquaman. I haven't seen anything for Aquaman going forward in Infinite Frontier, but I really hope they find a way to bring that book back.
Me too.
And if they do, put these two in it. They were a great duo. Princess Andy is an amazing character. I love Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson's been great since the first time that I remember ever seeing him as Jackson Hyde was probably on Young Justice, and where he played Calderon. And he looked kind of similar, but he had different powers, and he had those weird water tattoos on his arms, but I thought they looked cool. And ever since I met him there, he's been one of my favorite DC characters. I love, I guess he's not Aqualad anymore. He's Aquaman. So.
Yeah. It's awesome to
he
see
always
him
had a
as
great
Aquaman.
moral compass.
Right?
Yeah, the art was amazing. The colors were great, especially in this alien thing that they're in. It was just a great story. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10, fair enough. I wanted to give it that high, but I tend to be really, really critical and score my stuff a little lower. Brandon, what did you think about Aquaman?
I'm with Rob. I mean, I think I was just so in love with the artwork. It kind of moved the story along for me a lot more, and I think I enjoyed it a lot more for that. But I saw someone compare the back and forth of Andy and Jackson to Damian and Dick in Batman and Robin, and I definitely kind of agree with that. It was a lot of fun. Like it kind of had this fun partnership, working together and training and that sort of thing. And I would definitely love to read a book that's just the continued adventures of this Aquaman. And then I echo everything that Rob said with the artwork. I'm so excited to see Daniel Sampere just draw the hell out of Superman in March. It's going to look amazing, especially if it has the same color work.
I really hope. I hope that him and Lucas stay together because they are a phenomenal team.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jared, what did you think about it?
Well, you know me, I've always been an Aquaman fan. The art in this particular whole storyline, not just this issue, but just going for this issue, is 4 words. This art is beautiful. It really helps the story flow. I love the feel that it has. It's a very good Aquaman future story, so I don't know, maybe a Black Label for Jackson and Andy, or, it's DC, Barry, go fuck up something you're not supposed to be doing, and, bring these people on there.
Right?
I'm gonna have to go, I absolutely loved it, and last week, I gave a 3.5 or something like that to a story, so I'm kind of stingy with the 2, but I enjoyed it for what it is, and I love the story. 8.75, not Confluence. Freaking call it Cosmic Space Ocean. It sounds cooler out of 10. So 8.75.
But all right, we are going from characters that I do absolutely love to characters that I used to. Brandon is going to be taking us through Future State Legion of Superheroes number 2, written by Brian Michael Bendis with the cover and inside art done by Raleigh Rosmo and Ivan Placencia with Dave Sharp on letters.
All right, this is part 2 of Brian Bendis' attempt to create his own 5 years later. Does he succeed? I'll let you decide. Like with his other Legion of Superheroes run, not much happens in this issue, so I'll just go over the essentials. The Legion fight Element Kid, and Cosmic Boy is kind of frustrated. He's demanding justice. He wants to personally kill him. Then we find out that Tasmia, who's kind of been relaying this information to him, is actually revealed to be Chameleon Boy, and he's been duping him the whole time, so he's even more upset. And then we have another reveal that Saturn Girl was actually a spy sent by the planet Titan to spy on the Legion. So you can start to see where a lot of these reveals are just piling up on top of each other. But with the help of the Legion, she's able to abandon the government on Titan, reunite with the Legion. John shows up at the end. I don't remember how that happened exactly, but he does. And they're shown in that final splash page with a grand long live the Legion, which is nice. And as I finished this issue, I realized an important lesson that Brian Bendis, for no matter how much he may try, is no Keith Giffen. And for as much as...
He's no Peter Griffin.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, for as much as I personally enjoy Riley Rosmo's stylized art, and I know he gets a bit of flack, personally, I think I'll stick with the 5 Years Legion that I actually enjoy. And all in all, I would probably give this issue of 5 out of 10, and that's me being a lot more generous than I should be.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but the story that got put together here was not half bad for Brian Michael Bendis. It's stuck. Look, don't get me wrong here. I'm not writing him a fan letter by any stretch, but compared to the stuff that I have read, this is gold. He's ruined titles, and
you can't do a different criteria. Well, he writes shitty, so out of his shitty writing stuff, this one's not as shitty. No, hold up to
still bad.
Hold up to the damn company standards, for the love of God. This guy, he had Miles Morales,
which he did great.
Yes, and he can write for that style. This is Legion of Superheroes, for the love of God. It debuted when Mom was born.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Legion of Superheroes, and I always have been. They've. I am not a huge fan of time, like period pieces. It doesn't matter to me if it's in the future or in the past. I'm just not interested. I'm a present minded kind of guy. But I've always
Jonah Hex is really good.
Well, okay, so there's Jonah Hex too. Those are the two things that are outside of time. I wasn't even thinking about Jonah Hex, but so Jonah Hex, but Legion of Superheroes. That was the only thing I really read that was set in the future. And Saturn Girl and Element Lead, and all of them, they were just as much near and dear to me as my characters like Batman and Superman. So when they were handed over to Brian Michael Bendis, I didn't know what to expect.
No one did.
Now I do. Now I do. It's okay. Getting back to the issue, it's still far too many word balloons and caption boxes, but at least the art that's being covered up is from Riley Rosmo. I am not a fan. I can't stand it.
Wow.
To me, it's visually assaulting. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. I'm just flat out being honest. When I look at that page, anything that he's done, I have to struggle to get through it. As a matter of fact, I know Jared was listening to the podcast back then. I don't know if he was on it or not, but when he did the Robin King comic book, I couldn't even finish it. It's horrible to me. But touching on that note, this style, like I mentioned, our listeners know, it's just not for me. It's messy. It's irregular. Just overall, it's unattractive. That said, the initial concept of the Legion of Superheroes that Bendis wrote and did absolutely nothing with over the course of the year with the first book has now been completely dropped. They are not continuing that storyline. From now on, the Legion of Superheroes will consist of a few of the original cast members plus the Legion of substitute superheroes. Now that's a whole year's worth of comics, buying them at $4 a comic and hoping that he pulled off something grand at the end of it. He just drops it and moves 100 years, 1,000 years, whatever it is, into the future and decides he's going to pick up and start all over again. And I mean, excuse me, I've seen what he did in concurrent titles with the Legion of Superheroes, with Young Justice, for example. He did the exact same thing.
Sleeper agent. He's trying to purposely destroy DC.
He has great ideas, and I can't take that away from him. But he should not be the one to write about those great ideas.
Yeah.
If I was a fan and I was following that Legion of Superheroes story, I'd be pissed as hell if I bought a whole year's worth of comics that led to absolutely nowhere. That's a long time and a lot of money invested. Look, this team is continuing after Future State, and that's not okay with me. The story idea is good, but I've been reading his work since he started, and he has dropped the ball every single time. Again, I'm trying to be generous here, and I'm giving this one a 4.5 out of 10 for me. Jared, what did you think?
Well, as always, I don't try to pay attention to who's writing it, so I made a little note, of course, Brian Bendis. Why the hell didn't I see that coming? Because at best, subpar art, and that's giving it very kind. Not a fan of that style whatsoever. So many fucking dialogue boxes. If I wanted to pick up a damn story, If I wanted to pick up a book, I'd pick up a story written by someone who's got this thing called talent.
It's hard to take it seriously either, because
it is really.
It's supposed to be this, like I kept calling it his impression of 5 years later, and that's definitely a story that puts you in its element. It's mature in a way, and this is like every moment where there's tension, it has to be a joke, or you got to cut away, or you have to ask questions, and it just really deflates any sort of tension I could feel towards this book to the point where I'm just like, I don't really want to read this anymore.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Just like true Brian Bendis style, you're getting your money's worth if the story was written pro bono. I have to give this 5.25 Mother, I'm home out of 10, which was a creepy damn line when I read it. I loved it. Because my daughter will do that to freak out my wife. Hello, Mother.
All right, Rob, where did you put it at?
I get the feeling that this show's not a huge Bendis fan, and I feel like I'm going to fit in perfectly. I agree with the dialogue boxes, but I will admit I found there wasn't as many useless ones as I find in a lot of his other writing, with just people talking about nothing to do with the story whatsoever, just what's going on with their day. There wasn't any of that I could find.
Yeah, that ladder dialogue that he's so famous for.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing?
I can't
Who, me?
stand that.
Yeah, you. Oh, well, I'm going to the store. Which store? That store over there. Nobody needs that kind of dialogue in a comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, it works
It's
well.
just wasting space.
It works well in. I don't know if you guys have read his early crime fiction. I got one of his earliest works, Goldfish, as a Christmas present, and it works really well there. Like it's got this kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's this fun, witty tone to it. And I don't think it translates to everything. It's so stylized, it can't work for a big cast of people or certain characters. It just doesn't fit.
I didn't mind it when he was doing his Ultimate stuff, and I was actually reading that as a teenager, so it kind of fit really well with me at the time. But nowadays, it's too much. I find it hard to get through the pages sometimes. Yeah. But this one, I will admit, I really enjoyed the story. I'm not a huge Legion fan. I just find it's too many people to pay attention to at one time. But I did enjoy this story quite a lot. It wasn't too pulling on the mind. It was a little simple. I'm also a huge fan of Riley Rossmo's art.
Oh no, another one?
To be honest with you, on Joshua Williamson a few years ago under the Vertigo banner called Deathbed, drew me into it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Honestly, it took me a couple issues to really get into it, but by like the middle of the book, I was in for Joshua Williamson, but by the middle of the book, I fell in love with Rossmo's art. And the Robin King story was a little odd for his art style. I find he's better with fantasy and horror and less with the superheroes.
I suppose that's right. He wrote the Martian Manhunter miniseries as well.
That definitely had some horror elements.
Man,
oh yeah,
that did have some horror elements into it too. But that it was that particular title that really threw me off from him when it started with Martian Manhunter. It was up until that point he didn't bother me so much, but I guess he wasn't quite so prevalent on characters that were near and dear to my heart. I guess I want to see those in like magazine quality type, Javier Fernandez or Daniel Sampier or Zermanico or there's Alejandro Sanchez, any of them out there that that can draw amazing. And then I've got Rossmo who and I shit you not, I've seen kids that draw just like that, and I'm not trying to be rude, I'm not, but I mean that's I got an 8-year-old that loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I guarantee you if I held up a sketch of his next to a sketch of Riley Rossmo's of the Ninja Turtles, they wouldn't be that different.
Oh.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, man. It's just a really relaxed, casual, non-professional type of animation.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I think it has to be a preference, because stylized artwork like that can be very difficult to get into. I remember starting to read books by Jeff Lemire, and you look at some of his work, his penciling work, and it's like, oh, I don't know about this. But the more that you read it, you kind of slowly get into it. And that doesn't always happen, but I think it kind of happened for me with Riley's work, because I remember I couldn't get through that Robin King book either. It was just too ugly. But I saw a little backup that he did in the Detective Comics 1027 with James Tynion IV, and it was him and Batman and Robin and Deadman, and I was like, oh, this is perfect for him, because it was really... Yeah, it was like a fun, horror story, and I jokingly said, if they ever wanted to team him up and do like a Batman Deadman series, I think he'd be perfect for the job. But yeah, I can definitely see how it can be jarring.
Yeah, I think it's all about personal preference, and honestly, Okay, so every time I tell somebody this, I usually get a very strange look. But one of my top 5 movies of all time is American Psycho. And so, I mean, I get it. It's all about taste. That movie doesn't exactly hit home with a lot of people. But, so I get
Observe
it.
and
So,
report.
right. But, okay. Sorry, I lost track of where we were at. Has everybody given their
just
rating?
one more thing to say about the book. Despite all the stuff we're saying about Ross Mozart and how much I love it, one thing I'm noticing, if you look at the final splash page at the end, take that as you will, there's not a lot of feet being shown. Mm-hmm.
No, I was getting some serious Rob Liefeld vibes.
I still enjoyed the rest of it, but Bouncing Boy is the only person with good looking feet. Yeah.
That's kind of odd, isn't it?
And I think John Kent was only shoved in so Bendis could say, hey, look what I did with John. Remember that?
Was he?
Yeah.
I don't even remember him being in the first issue, and I thought he was like with the Justice League.
Yeah, he's supposed to
something.
be Superman right now of Metropolis.
I was so confused.
Yeah.
So he just
His
kind of
costume's
shows up.
kind of weird, and he's got some kind of weird mustache, and that I don't know. That was just a weird inclusion for me. Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Did we get everybody's final scores on that one?
I would give this. I initially rated it higher, but I think I'm going to give this maybe a 6. Yeah.
6 out of 10. That's still pretty high as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is just... I mean, everybody has dream teams. And, this one is just my
I just found the
opposite
story
of that.
fun. That's for Bendis, it was a fun story. That's the only reason I rated it a little higher.
And that's what it got. That's why it got a 4.5 on me. And the compliment came right out of the gate, guys. I said this was a good story for Brian Michael Bendis. But all right, so we are now going to head off into another point of time into the distant future. Written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, with art from Scott Godlewski and Gabe Altaeb, lettering from ALW's Troy Peteri, and wrapped in a cover from Yannick Paquette and Nathan Fairbairn. Jared, what is going on in Superman House of L?
First thing happens when you pick up this issue, which I definitely recommend because it is gorgeous. Just look at that cover work. It's got some beautiful tribal feel going on at the corners and the bottom that kind of incorporates the Superman logo. Yeah. But it also looks like cool. Aliens kind of kneeling to the outside of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you see a whole mess of people wearing the House of L logo. I don't know if they're really descendants or if they're people that just admire, if all of them are descendants or if some of them are just people that admire, because this seems like that'd be everybody having a bunch of kids to be able to breed with a whole bunch of different people. So I'm thinking some of them got to be, add-ons or husbands or some shit like that.
Well, yeah, sure.
Well, it starts out everyone got Superman logo on, and they're fighting parademons. So right to the action, fucking love it, epic. With the assumption that these are the offsprings of a few lines deep, because you see the OG Superman on the cover. Brainiac 4 is running the detective department, which good choice because he's Brainiac, Doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what iteration he is of Brainiac, he's always going to be the best one at computers. They got the super logo, she's got the blue lantern ring, for Hope. Her brother is Ronan. I don't know if that's going to end, if they end up doing a continuation story, which please God do, because I'm loving it. Her brother, Rowan, they had to be twins or something like that, because 1 letter difference, that's something like a mom and dad would do. Hey, you're already, you gotta share a birthday. You might as well share a name. You have 1 letter difference.
Sounds about right.
Ronan's got his own Superman outfit with a badass cape, and it kind of looks cool on him. I like the design. It seemed like it could have been one of those things where, like, if Superman was in a movie and he's trying to decide what his uniform would be, or like when Superman's TV show, I'm pretty sure they're going to take it up much later than him deciding to be Superman. But, like, at all the rest of the comic book shows, they go through all the different designs, didn't quite make it. I'll try this one. Nah, I don't really feel it. And then they go on to one that's their own. Like Flash did a whole bunch of them.
Right.
So it looks good. It would have made the final cut if I was to be a superhero and shit.
Let's be real, dude. You would be a supervillain.
I would never do anything to harm my loyal subjects.
His loyal subjects. Did you catch that?
Well, damn everybody else, man. There's a big fight coming this way, which everyone seems to be in a panic from. And, of course, this big fight is parademons. And if you remember, even in the Wonder Woman story last week, parademons are still a problem at the end of their existence. So they're going to be a problem now because why the hell not? Apocalypse needs to be blown the hell up. But it's not going to because that's a good scapegoat for anything cosmic as well. Darkseid's in charge of the shit.
All right.
They got some great fight scenes. The action sequence carries along. The art is solid throughout the entire book. Brainiac 4 goes down, gets taken out by this female predator. I can't remember her name. It's not Brainiac 4 anymore. Now it's the Red King for some god-awful reason, and boom. Whole bunch of the Superman logo-wearing team, or the House of L, as you were, team up in a fight with at least 4 Doomsday, which seems, it seems like you're fucked. Pardon for my language and everything like that. One Doomsday killed Superman. There's just 4 of them. I didn't know this was a battle royale. You know, this thing, you're not tagging in one at a time. No, it's not endurance. It's you got 4 of those sons of bitches on you.
No bueno.
Yeah, definitely no bueno. The Black Racer shows up to stop the Predator chick. Red Superman. Apparently, Red Superman means you're the bad guy. His name is Pyra?
Pyrus, yeah.
Yeah. Pyre Hose. Is just laying down some butchering and shit, and then zoom, what happens? Bam! It's the OG Superman. He comes up with the quickness, catches one of his punches, and then if you look at the panel, you can see it was, yes, a bitch slap straight across old Red's face, knocking him down. You can see he ended like this after he struck. That's not a regular slap. That's a bitch slap right there. He put him in his place because he's the OG Superman. Then he grabs his hand, and they fought because, well, you know, you just got stomped, so you're going to listen to what the hell I say. They grab their hand, and they fly off to the prison that the OG Superman has been sent to by Cersei, the same person who created the Pyre Hose to destroy... Pyrus, whatever. Looks like Pyre Hose. The magic in his existence to destroy the House of L, and the OG Kal-El is going to be fly him to the dimension that Cersei put him at to be that world Superman. So he's using the weapon that she used against his family, Pyros.
Yeah, sure.
To go fight and protect the place where he was sent as a punishment. So it worked out good. I loved it. It was a great story. I recommend this to any level of reader. If you're just wanting a fun story and you're just starting out, I'd recommend this. It's not going to have any bearing or anything, but you get kind of the tone and for Superman, and for someone who's definitely a completionist, then I definitely recommend it. I enjoyed it tremendously. I'm giving it 9.25 OG Superman bitch slaps out of 10.
All right. You know, for an oversized issue, I thought this one was a pretty quick read. I found it a little strange that Superman had a kid with Cersei, but hey, comic books, right? He's
been around for a long time, you know? Shit.
Yeah, I guess you run out of options. I really enjoyed the art in this one, and seeing all the different kinds of descendants of Superman and all those wicked cool costumes.
Oh yeah,
that was amazing. I loved it. I gobbled that stuff up, man. That was definitely fan service, and I'm not going to complain about it. The story, though a quick one shot, was done really well. This is a great read if you're a Superman fan and a general comic fan. I'm giving this one a 7.75 out of 10. Brandon, where were you at with it?
I enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to. I originally hadn't even planned to pick this one up, but I saw that cover and it felt like Superman had reached his Dune vibes. Like I got a real House of Trees feel. And so I kind of, read it, and like I said, it felt like a really creative take on the legacy of Superman. I find this world to be really fascinating, and I kind of hope that they'll return to it again, but I know that it still works as a one and done story. Like, if that makes sense, it's good enough that you could just read it on its own, and it's an interesting take on the legacy of Superman, but also it'd be kind of cool to see it come back. In terms of
the story and the characters
annual
that they used here, that it would be really interesting to see where they went with it. But again, like you said, it works as a one shot too.
Yeah, I mean,
an annual, and it's Pariah that I was thinking of.
Right, Pariah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it would be interesting to see how the present day Superman viewed like having this big legacy, So I don't know if anyone's interested in exploring that. If Kennedy Johnson is interested in exploring that, I would definitely say pursue it. And in terms of the artwork, I have been kind of meh on Godlewski in the past.
Me too, actually.
Like
is really nice
a standard penciler, not bad, but nothing.
I see what you're saying about
nothing groundbreaking. Just kind of like a standard penciler.
That was perfect.
I felt like he really was in his element.
Rob, what did you think about it?
Particular issue.
I honestly really enjoyed this book as well, a lot more than I thought I would.
There were definitely a couple.
I didn't really know where to think about this one in terms of
I was definitely pleasantly surprised
how it fits in with everything. Again, it didn't feel like a Future State book, much like Batman, Superman. It much could have been like an Elseworld story. The whole concept of these future descendants, all these children of Superman. One thing I'm curious about is if all of these people are actually related to Kal-El. If he actually just spread his Kryptonian seed across the galaxy, and all these people ended up back on Earth or wherever they are, and just all decided to wear the crest of El.
Well, I guess
the artwork.
Yeah, that's what I know.
It's possible that they could be. Some of them could be like great grandchildren of John or something like that.
Yeah, I think one set might have been mentioned to be related to John in a way. Descendants. I think it was the twins were descendants of John Kent.
Yeah.
The art, I actually really enjoyed the art. That opening splash page, full of action, nice colors, sets the tone for the book. I find you get to see a little bit of each character at their best, doing what they do. I did find some of the character personalities a little one-dimensional at times. Like, they just that one emotion, that one idea, and that's all they are.
Yeah, that's a little stale and played out.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a fun book, and there's a lot of characters in the background I'd love to see more of as well. This could be a great compilation book, a great team-up book, and I'm a huge Lantern fan. You put a blue Lantern in there, you put any color Lantern in there, and I'm sold.
Oh yeah.
That's usually enough for me too.
Yeah. But all in all, I gave this a 7.75 out of 10.
The very final issue we're covering before we get to the bookend is Dark Detective number 4, written by Mariko Tamaki, with the cover and art from Dan Mora and Jordi Belair, with Aditya Bidikar on lettering. Here is the last story of Bruce Wayne in Future State in Dark Detective number 4. This issue starts out with us getting a look at Peacekeeper 1. I got some info last week that led me to believe that this might actually be Bane. And man, if it was the case, that would have been so awesome with the little seed that was planted from Joker messing with Bane just a few months ago. But that's not the case. It certainly doesn't seem to be, though. He is a big, muscular dude, but it doesn't appear to be Bane at all. He's got a mohawk with red hair. But other than that, picking up where we left off from last issue, Bruce is, of course, living with Noah, and his daughter, of course, is worried about her dad. Bruce sticks her with a needle and knocks her out because he knows that the magistrate is on the way. Bruce isn't crazy, like I also suggested. It was a distinct possibility, but obviously I was wrong. He's using Noah's paranoia to cover up his detective work. And he knows that the magistrate is closing in on them. All of them. So he leaves with Noah's kid and Noah. That's why he stuck her with the tranquilizer. Bruce takes them to a safe house and tells them who he really is. And then they go to the magistrate. He tries to save Hannah as he's infiltrated the building and attempts to fight off Peacekeeper 1. They battle nonstop, trading both barbs and blows. And finally, we get to the very last page where I'm kind of confused by the 3 panels at the top. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. The explosion goes off in the building, and I think everyone but Batman, obviously, thinks that he has died again. I can't really tell, though. The last caption box says that Bruce Wayne's adventures continue anew next month in Detective Comics 1034, so I hope we get to see him working his way toward who he is in this title. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun way to wrap up the very end of Tamaki's run with Bruce Wayne, unless she's continuing on after Future State, which, honestly, I wouldn't really have a problem with. Jared, what did you think about this story?
Glad to see, hopefully, the magistrate is dead. Or Peacekeeper 1, whatever. I'm glad to see this story is over, for the love of God. Let's stop, move on, recognize the mistake you just made, and better ourselves. But, overall, for the comic, the story, it carries something that I just don't care for the magistrate storyline at all. The countdown aspect was cool, where it's going towards the bomb. I'm gonna give this 8 End of the Shadows is light out of 10.
That makes some sense. It's a great book. Brandon, where were you at with it?
Well, I've been freaking loving Dark Detective so much. Such a unique and interesting take. And when I heard that pitch,
That's
I
a
was
really
like,
good way of saying it.
yeah, I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. And, you know, Bruce having like this eclectic band. I don't know what other way to describe it, but this like strange band of people that he's living with, Noah and his daughter. It's just been a lot of fun. So I felt like this one wrapped it up fairly well. I think that him getting to the fight with Peacekeeper 1 was a little rushed for my taste, because he spends a lot of time learning about them and then immediately he's ready to storm the castle. It just, I don't know, that one was a little too fast for me.
Exactly. With limited tech and he's beat up, he's still dealing with the physicality of the bullet wound.
Yeah,
that he
and is still
sewn up by a butcher.
Yeah.
But he manages to infiltrate the magistrate headquarters with no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, and
his household is that of like the Question. He's a brilliant detective, but he lives with a crazy person. In the Question's aspect, they're both the same entity. But he gets a paranoid, schizophrenic for a roommate who thinks that the milk is spying on him and stuff. So the Question gets to deal with thinking the shoelaces are out to get him.
Yeah, and it felt like they went from the plot about how the drones were watching them to just straight to destroying Peacekeeper 1, which, like I said, was a little rushed. But on the whole, I felt it wrapped up in a pretty nice way, and I just can't praise Dan Mora's artwork enough. I really cannot. I have been following this guy since he was posting fan art of Batman Beyond, and to see him on an official Batman book with such a cool story, I'm so happy. So I am leaning towards an 8.5, maybe on a really good day a 9, but for now a solid 8.5 on this. What a great conclusion. And to answer your question, Tamaki is continuing with Dan Mora next month on Detective Comics. I can't wait.
With Dan Mora.
Yes, with
oh,
Dan
God,
Mora.
that's
I know.
great
I
news.
can't wait. Because if they can do...
I didn't touch on the art, but oh, man, it has been absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely.
In every issue.
And if they could do this in a, kind of throwaway Future State tie-in, I can't wait to see what they're going to do at Detective. So I felt great about this one.
Sounds good to me, man. I can't wait for it either. Rob, where were you at with it?
I loved the story. Thought it was great. I cannot wait for Detective Comics. If this is what we're going to be getting, I want more of it. I want all of it. Give it all. The art was amazing. Dan Moore is doing great work. I was kind of disappointed with the Peacekeeper 01 reveal. This whole time, the past 2 months, they've made it seem like this great big mystery, and that's going to be the whole thing with the whole Magistrate storyline, and he unmasks, and it's a Guy Gardner ripoff. I don't know who that is, if anybody recognizes him at all.
Send
The
us
purple
in
glove.
send us in some show mail or hit us up on Twitter.
I really thought it was going to be Damien. And what a reveal that would have been. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, personal to see him come this far, but I don't know.
Hush. Have it be
Yeah.
Hush. Yeah. Don't have it be Damien, because Damien's kind of slender and thin. He gets that from
He could have been
Talia.
taking some supplements. You
Talia,
never
but
know.
Right?
but what was it? Tommy? Is that Hush?
Yeah, Tommy Elliott.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have it be Tommy.
Yeah,
Shoot.
that could work.
That would have been groundbreaking. Have it be Ghost Hunter?
Ghostmaker.
Ghostmaker. Have it be Ghostmaker.
That's who I
Shit.
initially thought
Hmm.
it might have been, was Ghostmaker, but that doesn't look like Ghostmaker
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I never
His
pictured him as a
Ghostmaker's,
ginger.
yeah, no. And he's
Well,
way too big to be Ghostmaker.
Yeah.
That's why I thought
What's
it might
the
have
future?
been
Maybe we
Bane.
did the supplements. Who knows? Amazon delivers.
Yeah, Bane would have been really cool, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of in the camp of Bruce's long lost brother,
Hmm.
who became Talon, William Cobb. I don't know how you guys
That's
would have felt about that.
possibility, too.
That would have been weird, but I think I would have done that.
Yeah. Just
I would have dug it too if he wasn't used so irresponsibly. No offense,
Yeah.
Dan Jurgens, if he wasn't used so irresponsibly in the Nightwing book.
yeah.
Oh yeah. The purple glows was a nice touch. I love when they do the throwbacks like that.
Yes.
Yeah. All around, I gave the story an 8.5.
All right, and now for the final story in the final book before we get to the bookend. Written by Joshua Williamson with art from Gianni Milogiannis, Jordi Belair, and letters from A Larger World Studios' Troy Pateri. Brandon, can you run us through Red Hood?
All right. So we pick up with the reveal that Jason Todd is wanted for quite a bit of money, and Rose is kind of chiding him on it, saying like, "Oh my God, you're worth so much money. What did you do?" And Jason is slowly looking in on the Mad Hatter, kind of wondering what the heck is going on, how he's been set up. But before Rose has a chance to kind of, attack him and confirm the kill, he escapes and goes on the run, and he's speaking with the magistrate dispatch, asking, what the hell's going on with this mask alert, why he's been put, under a wanted list. And he's slowly attacked by the magistrate's drones, and you get this really cool action-packed fight between Jason Todd using this, I don't even really know what to call it, like this hook on a line to basically bring down the magistrate's drones as he flees from the scene. His helmet is crushed, he's bloody, and he's basically trying to get away from them to figure out what the heck is going on. So he climbs up a building, uses some kind of health spray to kind of heal himself briefly, and then, knowing that the Red Hood contains mind control technology, as was revealed in the last issue, he puts it on, hoping that it will lead back to whoever is initiating this gang. So the Red Hood basically leads him back to this strange tower, and the big reveal is the villain who's been orchestrating the Red Hood gang is White Rabbit from that Batman New 52 comic. I don't even remember which one it was. It's kind of forgettable, but anyway,
Yeah.
a fun use of White Rabbit. So Jason is kind of going back and forth with White Rabbit, wondering what she's doing and why she was using the Red Hood gang. And it seems like White Rabbit is about to have the slip on Jason Todd when Rose Wilson, the Ravager, shows up and reveals that she had a premonition, basically, of her cutting Jason Todd's throat. And, I guess Jason thought that she would save him, but that was not the case. But White Rabbit then offers Ravager a bounty White Rabbit offers Rose Wilson the chance to kill Jason Todd and collect the bounty that the magistrate has put on him, but she refuses, and they end up fighting for a little bit because Jason is still being controlled by the Red Hood mask, but ultimately she is able to break the mask, and Jason is able to regain consciousness, or he's not under mind control anymore, and then they're both able to just kind of escape from the scene. And I don't think White Rabbit is captured, but basically they end up exposing the whole Red Hood gang plot. And then they meet up with Peacekeeper 3. They kind of explain everything that happened. Everything has been cleared. And then the second big reveal at the end of the issue, we see Jason walking up to his bike, and he's talking to someone in an alley. And we don't know who it is, but the mystery is that it's someone who is deeply connected with the family, because he mentions a line about how he is someone who sticks to the shadows. And we end with a really cool scene of Jason driving off into the distance as he and Rose are going to go on a vacation. So all in all, I would definitely say I enjoyed this backup story. I really liked the first part. I really liked the art. It kind of had a manga influence in a lot of places. It's really great kinetic action. The faces were a bit wonky at certain points. They worked really well in some and not as much in others, but I would say on the whole I enjoyed the portrayal of the characters in terms of their appearances. And I just have to say I really like Joshua Williamson taking his hand at some of these Gotham characters. I really do. So I would probably give this one about a 7.5 out of 10.
Right on, man. And Rob, where were you at with the whole issue?
All right, I'm a simple guy. You put a Robin story in front of me, I'm going to read it, no matter which Robin it is. Jason Todd. Yeah, Jason Todd is definitely one of the more interesting Robins of more recent times, which I was just a toddler when he was killed the first time, but how people hated him back then, I hear how it was happening, but nowadays I don't think that same vote would happen again.
No.
I got grounded for a week for using the phone for it, but I voted to keep them.
That's true. That's actually a true story, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, you made a good choice.
I didn't do no damn good. You got my ass whooped for nothing. I mean, I was talked to and sent in the corner to politely think about my actions.
I really see where you're coming from with the manga style. That red motorcycle reminds me a lot of the cycle from Akira.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, especially with that red color to it. I think this is probably the most interesting story involving the Magistrate, and puts the Magistrate, at least for me, in a different light with that reveal they did at the end. Mm-hmm. This mystery person who, for some reason, I think is Bruce Wayne, because it always is.
I think so.
The fact that this is going to be continued honestly makes me excited for what will happen with the Magistrate, despite the fact that I'm happy the Magistrate that we've seen so far is over. But this idea with the Magistrate, that there is something bigger and there's somebody at the top that everybody's working for, seems very interesting to me.
Me as well. What'd you give the issue as a whole?
As a whole, honestly, I'd give this a 9.25. Between both stories that are both great, the art style was great, the writing was great. You can't go wrong.
All right. And Brandon, what did you rate the issue as a whole?
Overall, I would say probably about an 8.5 out of 10. I just really enjoyed the Red Hood story paired with the Dark Detective story. And even if I enjoyed the Dark Detective story a little more, I think it kind of evens out my collective score.
Gotcha there. Jared, Red Hood and the whole issue, where were you at?
Well, I absolutely loved the OG Red Hood toss back, because I love the throwbacks to establish storylines that actually shows that the writers and the creators of that particular issue had done at least a little bit of research.
Right.
I dislike the Mad Hatter tech, not because I don't think it's a great plot point, but just because it's utterly frightening to me. Because you put on a hat, it gets a sunny, and all of a sudden, you're somebody's bitch. Right. I'm getting overall, between Dark Detective and Red Hood, which I'm a huge Jason Todd fan, stole the rims off the Batmobile, folks. Come on. Overall, Dark Detective, which I agree, I did like just a little bit more. I'm have to give this a 7.5. Revenger to the rescue out of 10.
And that will bring us to our bookend issue of Future State, the official end of the timeline, you know, except for some of the titles. We're heading into Generations Forged. This is the conclusion to a story given to us at the very beginning of Future State. Typically with multiple creators, we would break it down by story, but that's not the case here since there's a lot of people on this and it's all one big story. So by categories, it is. It was written by Dan Jurgens, Robert Venditti, and Andy Schmidt with an art team that consists of Mike Perkins, Marco Santucci, Paul Pelletier, Norm Rapman, Bernard Chang, Joe Prado, Colleen Duran, Brian Hitch, Andrew Curry, Dan Jurgens, and Kevin Nowlin, with coloring done by Hi-Fi. Tom Napolitano was on those letters and Liam Sharp on the cover, so without further ado, let's put Future State into our past. Now at the core of things here we have Dominus, a bad guy who just wants to have his perfect life by altering time around him. He's a big family dude and that's all that matters. He's mastered chronal energy and manipulation, though I don't remember from where. Not yet, anyway. I was given homework for reading up on him, and it's been so long since part 1 to this book came out that I've already forgotten. It doesn't matter. In any case, Dominus sent our heroes scattered throughout time and space, separated from each other. Commandi, Starfire, and Dr. Light are together trying to figure out how to get to the rest of the team so that they can reset time. It turns out that they were put on Krypton pre-Baby Superman. Meanwhile, Steel and Superboy were transported to prehistoric Earth and are a bit tangled up fighting off the dinosaurs. Later that night, Steel catches Superboy up on who he is exactly in the future and kinda blows his mind a bit. But as if they didn't have enough problems, Dominus sent a couple of his troops, the mixed-up Linear Men, after the duo. Now Sinestro, Batman, and a different Booster Gold are dealing with all of their own particular situations as well. After being able to sway Ultra Humanite and Major Force to their cause, they head to Brother Eye. Using some chronal manipulation of their own, Booster Gold manages to bring the whole team back together with a few extras. This is where we're told exactly what Dominus is. A former Lord of Order that embraced chaos. That is not good news. He's a being of pure energy with no permanent physical body. And that's also pretty bad news. Kinda hard to punch something that's not really there. After being transported to Dominus' realm to take him on, they realize that they must destroy the place to disrupt his power and hurt him some. In doing so, they erased the constructs of his family. Constructs that Dominus himself considered to be real. As you can imagine, he didn't take that too well, and he is really mad now. Using a bit of science logic, Steel and company find the turbine that powers his chronal creations, and they destroy it. This takes away all of his power, but not his life. Powerless, he swears revenge to his now-gone family. Wave Rider returns everyone to their respective homes right to the second that they were swept up. Everything gets tidied up in a nice little bow, and we're given this line about the Linearverse. A place that our heroes belong to, where time moves differently and people age far more slowly. So finally, a comic canon reason as to why and how the characters age the way that they do. It's definitely not necessary, it's a little bit of fluff, but for continuity nerds like me, it is hugely appreciated. I really like this one. And I mean, really. The art, the story, the whole thing. This one, I'm going to be giving an 8 out of 10.
Wow.
What did you think about it, Brandon?
I gotta be honest. I picked up the first one, Generations Shattered, because I liked Robert Venditti. I really didn't care about anyone else involved in the project.
Right.
I saw it was a gauntlet of artists. I was like, ooh, Robert Venditti. I know him from Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. This will be good. And it was okay. It kind of reminded me of like 0 Hour in that it's fun to read, but I don't know if it's like lasting in any way. It just kind of it's like one of those books that you just kind of read, you put to bed, you say that was really fun, and then I don't think about it all that much. That being said, I did like the range of artists that they chose for this issue. I don't know if I like them as much as the ones in the last issue. I thought those ones were really great. They got just some really stunning people to come in, and they got Doug Braithwaite to do a couple pages, who I absolutely love. But yeah, all in all, I would say I enjoyed the story as like a fun team up between these like bizarre characters, especially seeing the retro 30s Batman in like this futuristic city, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and then Steel and Superboy had kind of this great back and forth, so that was fun.
I laughed out loud when Batman went, "Wait, AI? That's a real thing?"
Yeah, isn't that great?
I'm like, dude, do you have any idea what the other you does?
I know. But yeah, on the whole, like I said, I'd say I enjoyed it. There was some good artwork, not as great as the last issue, but still pretty good, and an enjoyable read. But I don't know how lasting it'll be, so I'd probably give this one a 6.5.
That's fair. I understand where you're coming from. Now, what I would offer you is I'm under the assumption from a few earworms that I have that what we got out of Generations were issues that were already set up to introduce us to the previous new era of DC that they were going to do, being the 5G, where we were going to have all these different timelines happening at the same time. That got scrapped when Dan Didio was asked to step down from DC, and we moved more into the death metal leading into Future State, leading into Infinite Frontier plan, where Wonder Woman was put at the center of everything, and we got the reboot that way. So they still got what they wanted. They got, and I do too. I think ultimately that the way that things went down and the way that they did the reboot is far better than coming up with so many different timelines. It would be so hard to keep any form of continuity together. Everybody would be tripping over themselves. I wouldn't enjoy that at all. Rob, what did you think about this one? Okay, and now it's time for our favorite part of the show. It's time to pick our top 3 books of the week and our favorite panel/moment of the week. Rob, you want to start us off with that?
Coming in at number 3, I had Superman versus Imperious Lex. It was a fun story. It felt classic. I can't wait to see more. I'm very happy there's a 3rd issue coming of all the books that we got this week. The fact that that's getting out of the one, I think, is perfect. At number 2, I had Dark Detective. As I said before, the story was great between both that and Red Hood. Putting them together in one book made it even better. That's why I rated it so high. But putting in number 1, I had to put Aquaman. The colors were beautiful. The artwork was amazing. And I am in love with these characters. I'm a huge Aquaman fan ever since Rebirth. I had to put it number 1. There was no way I couldn't.
I can't blame you there, man. What would you say is your favorite panel/moment of the week?
I was kind of conflicted on the favorite panel. On one hand, I wanted to put that splash page at the end of Dark Detective with Peacekeeper 01 and Batman falling through the window with the explosions. The artwork was amazing, but I had to give my favorite panel award to Aquaman. At the end of that, they had a splash page, no pun intended, of Aquaman and Aquawoman escaping from whatever confound they were in, through the water, all the sea creatures around them. The colors were amazing. I thought it was beautiful. I would put that as a poster.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. For sure. And Jared, how about your top 3 and favorite moment?
Well, I want to start with an honorable mention. Nubia, a real one, I'm not the target demographic, but I wasn't the person that actually gave the review. I gave it to my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old both to read, and if you haven't, you got a lot of reading to do. It's like, it's a book.
Oh yeah.
But they both, they did the impossible. It made my 10-year-old and 13-year-old both agree that they both really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
For
awesome
them to
news.
both be able to agree, and there's that much story behind it, you know what? I definitely recommend it.
All right.
Great. I love the character. It gives future generations of comic book readers, or really people familiar with them, hope to be able to continue. But for my top 3, for number 3, I chose Aquaman. Number 2, was Generations Forged. I absolutely loved it.
All right.
And my number one was Superman House of L. But the best panel, I happen to agree, was in Aquaman when it's the full splash page, not a dialogue box to ruin it. And forget poster, that's one of those things where you get set up where you get printed out and you put it on 3 different canvases. And
for sure.
That was art. That was not just drawing a comic book, that was art. Great job.
Can't argue with that. Brandon, where are you at?
Well, my top 3, I definitely had a tough time because there were a lot of good books, but coming in at number 3, I would probably say Superman House of L. I just thought this was such a cool concept, and I like I said, I could definitely see myself coming back to this one and really immersing myself in that legacy world.
Absolutely.
And even if the artwork wasn't perfect at every point, I just that concept alone of the 1,000-year legacy of Superman sold me right from the get-go. At number 2, I have Batman Superman by Gene Luen Yang. I thought it was, like I said, it was a serviceable issue, but I think upon reflection, I really did enjoy it in a lot of ways, and I think I enjoyed it more because I'm anticipating what Yang is going to do on the Batman Superman title in the future. But like I said, a fun last ride for the world's finest. And then coming in at number 1, just an absolutely amazing comic, is Future State Legion of Super... No, I'm just kidding. Coming in at number 1 is Dark Detective.
I was worried to shit myself.
Just absolutely incredible. And I can't praise this book enough. I love the artwork. I love Tamaki's voice for Bruce Wayne. I love the Blade Runner setting. It just works so well. I was sold from the first issue, from the moment I flipped it open to now. And like I said, even if the ending was a little rushed, I was fine with it in the end. And I felt like the Jason Todd backup was just as entertaining. And I'm also looking forward to Joshua Williamson doing more work in Gotham. So yeah, definitely got to recommend Dark Detective as my number 1 book for the week. And as for my favorite panel, this one was also kind of tough because I was torn between that really great double-page spread of Bruce punching the Peacekeeper 1. There's just so much
that was a good one, wasn't it?
in that one, just shot. It's so great. But I was torn between that, and there's another scene in Future State Red Hood where it's Jason Todd crouching in an alley and they're magistrate troops to the side and Jason's got his hand on his shoulder, and that would make, if I could blow it up, that would make such a great computer wallpaper. But
for sure,
if I had to choose, I'd probably go with the one from Dark Detective, or from the main Dark Detective story by Dan Mora. I love that shot of Bruce punching the Peacekeeper 1. It's really great.
It's a pretty picture, regardless of if it's violent or not. All right, so I am pulling a lot of comics from the same ones that y'all did. My number 3 spot is going to Future State Aquaman number 2. If the other 2 on this list weren't as good as they were, this would have easily made number 1. I love the character so much. I love the world, the stories. Absolutely awesome. And speaking of worlds that I love, like Brandon, this 1,000 years into the future Superman House of L stuff, I would gobble that up forever. There's so much you could do. It's almost like instead of a Legion of Superheroes, it's like a Legion of Supermen.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Or super people, as it were. And I could read that forever, man. My number 1 spot, big surprise here, is going to go to Future State Dark Detective number 4. Dude, this book was so fun. It was so amazing. The art it's beautiful. And the story in both of the titles, I had an absolute great time with. And the chemistry between Ravager and Red Hood, man, I couldn't get enough of that either. I enjoyed the Red Hood just as much as I did the Dark Detective story. However, my favorite moment doesn't come from my number one comic. It's gotta be Superman putting the smackdown on his kid Pyrus and then holding him down by stepping on him and saying, "Don't get up yet, son. I want to speak with you."
That is
Right.
That was awesome. All right. And now, since we have our favorite moments out of the way, it's time for your favorite part. It's where we pick
The biggest thinker.
Oh, that's nasty.
Well, this probably shouldn't come as a surprise, but the biggest stinker for this week has to go to Future State, Legion of Superheroes. I just did not have a fun time reading this book at all. It was just all over the place, like I said, and I really just had to grab the essential moments. And I said this earlier, but any kind of tension that any scene had was just deflated every time a character would open their mouth, and it just ruined any feeling of anything that I had for this book. So I'm sorry, Bendis. I like Daredevil, but I can't read this and say I'm having a good time.
I can't blame you there. Jared, who made your stinker?
Well, once again, I say it's not a big surprise. So far, we're going 2 for 2 for Not a Robot podcasters here to choose the Legion of Superheroes as a 2-roll flush. I mean, Bendis has his niche and stuff like that. Have him draw, I don't know, the things with Amy Farrah Fowler at the end of the issues when she's talking about flashbacks and shit like that. That's more his wheelhouse. Give him 2 pages. Don't have him ruin franchises that have been around for, let's see.
Ever?
60 years?
Okay, let's see if Rob feels the same way as you two.
I might actually just be the odd voice out. I definitely agree that Legion was a little bit of a stinker at times, but honestly, for me, the biggest stinker was Suicide Squad. For me, it was just too messy and too all over the place to really keep track of. It was way too rushed. It really needed to slow down. I know everybody was dying quickly, but just slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like I said before, it probably needed to be stretched out over 3 issues.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
Sure. I'm gonna go with the first two opinions shared by our co-hosts here and choose the Legion of Superheroes as my stink list today. It's just bad. The story could work, but it is better in someone else's hands. So that's who made my stink list today, and that's the show. Come back next week where we will be reviewing Infinite Frontier #0, Batman 106, and the first issues of Swamp Thing, Crime Syndicate, Suicide Squad, and the Sensational Wonder Woman. We'll see you there. As always, you amazing humans out there, thank you so very much for listening. You're the reason why we do this. Visit campsite.bio/notarobot to hear all of our episodes on nearly any podcast platform, and patreon.com/notarobot podcast for all the exclusive content that we make for our patrons from all of our offerings: movie reviews, TV, anime, gaming, kids corner, pop culture, and more. Again, starting very cheaply at just $1 a month. Visit notarobotpodcast.com, and that will take you everywhere you need to go for everything Not a Robot. And with that, there's only one way we say goodbye around here.
Until next time.
Be good to each other.
And don't be a robot.
Just